You stand on the cusp of a world irrevocably altered. A landscape with a familiar hum of daily life is about to be swallowed by the distant, growing rumble of thunder. The air, thick with the scent of damp earth and the faint, sweet perfume of honeysuckle, carries a whisper of unease. You feel the rough weave of your homespun clothes against your skin, the weight of a simple tool in your hand, perhaps a hoe or a needle, as the sun dips below the horizon, painting the sky in hues of bruised purple and fiery orange. A dog barks in the distance. A child's laughter drifts from a nearby porch, and for a fleeting moment, the world feels utterly, beautifully ordinary. But beneath this placid surface, a tremor begins, a deep, resonant vibration that promises to shatter the quiet peace you have always known. It's a world you might not have survived, a life that tested the very limits of human endurance, demanding a resilience you never knew you possessed. Now, let's dim the lights and enjoy our journey tonight. You awaken to the insistent crow of a rooster, a sound that usually signals the gentle start of another day. But now, it feels sharper, more urgent. The morning light, filtering through the thin curtains of your window, casts long dancing shadows across the rough-hewn floorboards. You stretch, feeling the familiar ache in your muscles from yesterday's labor, a constant companion in this life of physical exertion. The air is cool, carrying the faint, earthy scent of dew-kissed fields and the distant, comforting aroma of wood smoke from a neighbor's chimney. You pull on your simple clothes, the fabric worn soft from countless washings, and make your way to the kitchen, where the warmth of the hearth already battles the morning chill. The crackle of the fire, the gentle hiss of water heating in a kettle, these are the sounds that anchor your world, a world that feels both vast and intimately small, bounded by the familiar rhythms of planting and harvest, birth and death. But today, a different rhythm pulses beneath the surface, a low thrumming that has been growing steadily louder in recent months. You hear it in the hushed conversations around the dinner table, in the fervent sermons delivered from the pulpit, in the anxious glances exchanged between neighbors at the general store. The words secession and union hang in the air like heavy, unspoken questions, each syllable charged with an uncertain future. You remember the heated debates, the passionate declarations, the way men's faces would flush with conviction, their voices rising with a fervor that was both exhilarating and terrifying. You recall the newspaper headlines, stark black letters screaming of states withdrawing, of lines being drawn, of an inevitable chasm opening between North and South. The distant echoes of political speeches, once abstract and far removed, now feel like the very ground beneath your feet beginning to shift. You step outside, the cool morning air a crisp embrace against your face. The sun is higher now, painting the sky in soft pastels, and the world seems to breathe with a deceptive tranquility. You walk past the fields, the young crops just beginning to emerge from the soil, promising sustenance, promising life. You run your hand over the rough bark of an old oak tree, its branches reaching towards the sky like gnarled fingers, a silent witness to generations of quiet lives lived beneath its shade. You think of the stories your grandparents told, of hardships overcome, of communities built from nothing but grit and hope. You wonder if your own children, if you have them, will tell stories of this time, of the choices made, of the paths taken. The future, once a clear, well-trodden path, now stretches before you like a dense, fog-shrouded forest, each step uncertain, each rustle of leaves a potential harbinger of change. The news arrives not with a bang, but with a quiet, insistent knock on the door. A neighbor, his face etched with a mixture of solemnity and grim determination, stands on your porch, a crumpled newspaper clutched in his hand. His voice, usually robust and full of laughter, is hushed, almost a whisper, as he speaks of Fort Sumter, of shots fired, of a nation irrevocably broken. You feel a cold knot tighten in your stomach, a sensation akin to the sudden drop of a stone into a deep well. The world, which moments ago seemed merely uncertain, now feels as if it has tilted on its axis, the familiar landscape suddenly alien and precarious. The sounds of the morning, the chirping birds, the distant lowing of cattle seem to recede, replaced by a ringing silence in your ears, a silence that screams of what is to come. You watch as men gather in the town square, their faces a mixture of fear and fierce resolve. The air crackles with a new energy, a desperate urgency that sweeps through the community like a sudden gust of wind. You hear the impassioned speeches, the calls to arms, the fervent belief in a cause that for many feels as fundamental as the air they breathe. Young men, barely more than boys, stand taller, their eyes alight with a nascent patriotism, a yearning for glory that has yet to be tempered by the harsh realities of conflict. You see the older men, their faces lined with the wisdom of years, their expressions more somber, perhaps remembering other wars, other sacrifices. The women stand on the periphery, their hands clasped tightly, their gazes fixed on their sons, their husbands, their brothers, a silent testament to the unspoken anxieties that ripple through their hearts. The decision, when it comes, feels both inevitable and profoundly personal. For some, it is a swift, unhesitating choice, a deep-seated conviction that compels them to action. For others, it is a slow, agonizing process, a wrestling with duty, family, and the terrifying unknown. You might see a young man, his jaw set, his eyes fixed on a distant horizon as he signs his name to a ledger, the scratch of the pen a definitive mark on the page of his life. You might hear the quiet, tearful goodbyes exchanged on a dusty road, the lingering touch of a hand, the whispered promises of return. The scent of freshly turned earth, usually a sign of new life, now seems to carry the faint, metallic tang of something else, something that speaks of sacrifice and the profound weight of impending change. The world you knew, the world of predictable seasons and quiet routines, is dissolving, replaced by the stark, unyielding landscape of war. The uniform, when you first put it on, feels alien against your skin. The rough wool, the stiff buttons, the unfamiliar weight of the belt and accoutrements. It's a far cry from the comfortable, warm clothes of your civilian life. You stand before a cracked mirror, or perhaps just the reflection in a still puddle, and see a stranger staring back. The boyish softness in your face seems to harden, replaced by a nascent grimness, a shadow of the man you are becoming. The scent of new fabric, of leather, of the faint metallic tang of the rifle you now carry, fills your nostrils, a constant reminder of this new identity. The sounds around you are no longer the gentle rustle of leaves or the distant lowing of cattle, but the sharp bark of commands, the rhythmic tramp of boots on hard ground, the clatter of equipment. You are now part of a company, a regiment, a vast, moving organism. The individuality you once cherished begins to blur, subsumed by the collective identity of the soldier. You learn to march, your feet falling into a synchronized rhythm with hundreds of others, the dust rising in clouds around your ankles. You learn to drill, the rifle becoming an extension of your arm, its weight a familiar burden. The sun beats down relentlessly, or the rain soaks you to the bone, but you continue, driven by the relentless cadence of the drum and the unwavering voice of your sergeant. Your muscles ache, your shoulders burn, but you push through, fueled by a nascent sense of camaraderie, a shared understanding that binds you to the men around you. Camp life quickly becomes your new reality, a stark contrast to the comforts of home. You sleep on the hard ground, a thin blanket your only barrier against the damp chill of the night. The air is thick with the smell of unwashed bodies, of wood smoke, of stale coffee, and the ever-present scent of horses. You eat meager rations, hardtack, salt pork, coffee, the taste bland, monotonous, yet vital for survival. The sounds of the camp are a constant symphony. The murmur of voices, the clatter of cooking pots, the distant whinny of a horse, the mournful strains of a harmonica played by a homesick comrade. You learn to find comfort in the small things. a moment of quiet conversation by the fire, a shared laugh over a clumsy mistake, the warmth of a letter from home clutched in your hand. Disease, however, is an unseen enemy, far more insidious than any opposing army. You see it spread through the camp like wildfire, a silent reaper claiming more lives than any bullet. Measles, mumps, typhoid, dysentery. The names become terrifyingly familiar. You witness the coughing fits that rack a man's body, the feverish delirium that steals his senses, the slow, agonizing decline that leaves him a hollow shell. The air in the hospital tents is heavy with the scent of sickness, of sweat and fear, and the low moans of the suffering. You learn to steel yourself against the sight of pain, to offer what little comfort you can, a cool cloth on a fevered brow, a whispered word of encouragement. The fragility of life, once an abstract concept, becomes a stark, undeniable reality, etched into the very fabric of your daily existence. The letters from home are lifelines, thin threads connecting you to the world you left behind. You eagerly await their arrival, the sight of a familiar hand on the envelope bringing a surge of warmth to your chest. You read of crops planted, of children growing, of the quiet struggles and triumphs of civilian life. You write back, carefully choosing your words, trying to convey the realities of your existence without alarming those you love. You describe the beauty of a sunset over a distant ridge, the camaraderie of your fellow soldiers, the simple pleasures of a hot meal. You omit the fear, the hunger, the constant gnawing anxiety that lurks beneath the surface. The ink on the page, the faint scent of the paper, these become tangible links to a world that feels increasingly distant, a memory that you cling to with desperate tenderness. You learn to live with the constant presence of boredom, punctuated by moments of intense, heart-stopping terror. Days stretch into weeks, filled with endless drills, monotonous chores, and the quiet contemplation of your own thoughts. You whittle small figures from wood, play cards with your comrades, tell stories around the campfire, anything to fill the empty hours. The sounds of the camp, once a symphony, can become a monotonous drone, a backdrop to the quiet hum of your own mind. But then, a sudden bugle call, a distant volley of gunfire, a shouted command, and the lethargy vanishes, replaced by a surge of adrenaline that courses through your veins, sharpening your senses, preparing you for the unknown. The quiet moments are a deceptive calm, a fragile peace before the storm, and you learn to savor them, for you never know when they will be shattered. The quiet passage of time after the war is not a sudden return to the familiar, but a slow, arduous journey of rebuilding, of coming to terms with a world irrevocably altered. You, whether soldier or civilian, carry the indelible marks of the conflict, etched into your body, your mind, your very soul. The air, though no longer thick with the scent of gunpowder, still holds the faint, lingering aroma of memory, of loss, of the profound changes that have swept through the land. For the returning soldier, the transition back to civilian life is often fraught with unseen challenges. The sounds of the farm, the rhythm of daily chores, these feel strangely alien after years of marching and battle. You might find yourself flinching at sudden noises, your senses still heightened by the constant threat of danger. Sleep can be elusive, haunted by the vivid nightmares of the battlefield, the screams of the wounded, the faces of the fallen. The camaraderie of the camp, the shared understanding forged in the crucible of war, is now replaced by a quiet solitude, a sense of being profoundly different from those who did not go. You feel the rough texture of civilian clothes, the unfamiliar lightness of a hand without a rifle, and a deep, unspoken longing for a world that no longer exists. On the home front, the landscape of daily life is scarred by absence and scarcity. The fields, though no longer battlegrounds, still bear the marks of neglect, their soil depleted, their fences broken. The homes, though no longer threatened by cannon fire, often stand empty, their windows like vacant eyes. their silence a testament to the lives that have been lost. You learn to live with less, to stretch every resource, to find new ways to sustain your family. The sounds of children playing, though a welcome return, are often tinged with a quiet solemnity, their games reflecting the shadows of the war they have witnessed. The scent of a simple meal, though a blessing, carries the subtle undertone of past hunger, a reminder of the hardships endured. The nation itself grapples with the profound wounds of division. The lines drawn by conflict, though no longer visible on maps, persist in the hearts and minds of people. You hear the lingering echoes of resentment, the quiet whispers of unresolved grievances. The task of reconciliation, of knitting together a fractured society, is a monumental one, requiring patience, understanding, and a profound willingness to heal. The sounds of political debate, though now peaceful, still carry the weight of past animosities, a reminder of the deep chasm that once threatened to tear the country apart. Yet, amidst the challenges, a quiet resilience begins to emerge. You see it in the slow, painstaking work of rebuilding, in the planting of new crops, and the mending of broken fences. You witness the quiet acts of forgiveness, the tentative reaching out across divides, the shared understanding that a future must be built, brick by painful brick. The sounds of hammers striking wood, of children's laughter echoing in newly repaired homes. These become the sounds of hope, of renewal. The scent of freshly sawn timber, of newly turned earth. These are the aromas of a world slowly, painstakingly, coming back to life. The memories of the war, though painful, become a part of the collective consciousness, a somber lesson etched into the very fabric of the nation. You carry them, not as a burden, but as a testament to the enduring human spirit, to the capacity for both immense suffering and profound resilience. The quiet passage of time, once a relentless, grinding force, now feels like a gentle, healing current, slowly smoothing the rough edges of memory, allowing new growth to emerge from the scarred earth. The sun sets, casting long, peaceful shadows across the fields, and you feel the cool evening air on your face, a quiet breath of peace after the long, terrible storm. As the final echoes of that distant thunder fade, and the last embers of those long-ago campfires cool, you find yourself drifting, gently, away from the dust and the struggle. The images, once sharp and vivid, soften at the edges, blurring into the quiet tapestry of history. The sounds of marching feet, of distant bugles, recede into the vast silence of the past, leaving only the gentle hum of the present moment. You are safe here now, far from the chill of the night watch or the searing heat of a summer campaign. The weight of those lives, those choices, those enduring moments, lifts from your shoulders, leaving behind only a quiet understanding, a profound appreciation for the resilience that flows through the currents of time. Let the whispers of the past settle, like soft dust, upon the quiet landscape of your mind as you drift deeper, deeper into the gentle embrace of the night. The first time you hear the distant rumble, it's like a low growl in the belly of the earth, a sound that vibrates through the soles of your boots and up into your chest. It's not thunder, not the familiar sound of a summer storm, but something deeper, more menacing. As the days turn into weeks and the campaigns begin, this sound becomes a constant companion, growing louder, closer, until it fills the very air you breathe. It is the sound of cannon fire, a percussive beat that shakes the ground, rattling the leaves on the trees and sending shivers down your spine. You learn to distinguish its nuances. The heavy boom of a distant siege gun, the sharper crack of a field piece, the terrifying whistle of a shell, arcing through the sky before its earth-shattering impact. You march day after day, the dust rising in choking clouds around you, coating your uniform, your hair, your very lungs. The sun beats down relentlessly, or the rain turns the roads into muddy quagmires, each step a struggle. Your feet ache, blisters form and burst, and the constant friction of your boots against your skin becomes a dull, persistent pain. You learn to ignore the hunger, the thirst, the gnawing exhaustion that threatens to pull you down. You focus on the rhythmic swing of your arms, the steady tramp of the men in front of you, the shared burden that binds you together. The landscape blurs into a monotonous repetition of fields, forests, and winding roads, each one a potential ambush, each turn a new uncertainty. The scent of battle is unlike anything you have ever known. It is a pungent, metallic odor, a mixture of gunpowder, sweat, blood, and the acrid smell of burning wood. It clings to your clothes, to your hair, to the very pores of your skin, a constant reminder of the violence that surrounds you. You taste the grit of dust and smoke on your tongue, feel the concussive force of explosions against your chest, hear the terrifying whistle of bullets as they tear through the air, a sound that becomes intimately familiar, a lullaby of death. Your senses are heightened. Every rustle of leaves, every distant shout, every flicker of movement in the periphery of your vision becomes a potential threat. When the order comes to advance, a cold dread settles in your stomach, a sensation that makes your hands tremble and your breath catch in your throat. You fix your bayonet, the cold steel glinting dully in the uncertain light, and step forward, your heart pounding a frantic rhythm against your ribs. The shouts of your officers, the screams of the wounded, the roar of musketry, it all blends into a deafening cacophony that threatens to overwhelm your senses. You see the flashes of gunfire, the smoke billowing across the field, obscuring your vision, turning the world into a chaotic, swirling nightmare. You push forward, driven by instinct, by the momentum of the men around you, by a desperate need to survive. The moments of direct combat are a blur of intense, terrifying action. You load and fire your rifle, the recoil jarring your shoulder, the acrid smoke stinging your eyes. You see faces, fleeting glimpses of fear, determination, and despair. You hear the sickening thud of a bullet finding its mark, the choked cry of a fallen comrade. The ground beneath your feet becomes slick with mud and something else, something warm and sticky. You step over bodies, their forms twisted and still, their eyes staring blankly at the sky. The world shrinks to the immediate space around you, your focus narrowed to the next step, the next shot, the next breath. Time seems to stretch and warp, each second an eternity, each minute a lifetime. When the fighting finally ceases, a profound silence descends, broken only by the groans of the wounded and the distant cries of birds returning to the shattered trees. The air is heavy with the scent of death, a cloying sweetness that makes your stomach churn. You stand amidst the carnage, your uniform torn, your face streaked with dirt and sweat, your hands trembling uncontrollably. The adrenaline begins to recede, leaving you hollowed out, exhausted, and profoundly changed. You look at the faces of your comrades, their expressions mirroring your own, a mixture of relief, shock, and a deep, unspoken sorrow. The sun, if it is still visible through the smoke, casts long, eerie shadows across the battlefield, illuminating the terrible cost of the day. You are alive, but a part of you has been irrevocably altered, a piece of your innocence lost amidst the chaos and the blood. The aftermath of battle is a landscape of profound desolation, a stark testament to the brutal efficiency of war. You walk across the field, your boots sinking into the churned earth, each step heavy with the weight of what has transpired. The air, still thick with the lingering scent of gunpowder and the metallic tang of blood, feels heavy, oppressive. Scattered across the ground are the discarded remnants of conflict, broken rifles, tattered flags, personal effects strewn like forgotten memories. You see the faces of the fallen, some peaceful in their stillness, others contorted in their final agony, their eyes staring blankly at the indifferent sky. A profound silence hangs over the scene, broken only by the distant caw of a crow or the soft rustle of wind through the shattered branches of trees. The cries of the wounded are a constant, haunting symphony. You hear their moans, their desperate pleas for water, They're whispered calls for loved ones. The makeshift aid stations, often just clearings in the woods or abandoned barns, are scenes of organized chaos. The air inside is thick with the smell of antiseptic, of sweat, of human suffering. Surgeons, their hands stained with blood, work tirelessly, their faces grim with exhaustion, performing amputations with a speed born of grim necessity. You see the piles of severed limbs, a horrifying testament to the destructive power of the mini ball. The pain, raw and visceral, hangs in the air, a palpable presence that seeps into your very bones. You might be tasked with carrying the wounded, their limp forms heavy in your arms, their breath shallow and ragged against your ear. You feel the warmth of their blood seeping through their clothes, the fragile beat of their heart against your chest. Each step is a prayer, a desperate hope that you can reach help in time. You see the fear in their eyes, the silent plea for comfort, and you offer what little you can, a steady hand, a reassuring word, a shared moment of quiet desperation. The sounds of their labored breathing, the faint tremor of their bodies, these become intimately familiar, etched into your memory. The nights after a battle are often the hardest. The darkness, usually a source of comfort, now feels vast and menacing, filled with the ghosts of the day. You lie on the cold ground, unable to sleep, your mind replaying the horrific images, the sounds, the smells. The distant howls of coyotes or the hoot of an owl can sound like the cries of the dying, blurring the line between reality and nightmare. You pull your blanket tighter, seeking warmth, seeking solace, but the chill of memory penetrates even the thickest wool. The stars, usually a source of wonder, now seem indifferent, their cold light illuminating a world that has lost its innocence. The burial details are grim, silent affairs. You dig the shallow graves, the earth heavy and resistant, your muscles aching with the effort. The bodies, wrapped in blankets or simply laid in the ground, are lowered with a quiet reverence. There are no grand ceremonies, no eulogies, just the quiet scrape of shovels and the unspoken prayers of the living. The scent of freshly turned earth mixes with the lingering odor of death, a potent reminder of the fragility of life. You see the faces of the men around you, their expressions somber, their eyes reflecting the profound weight of their task. Each shovelful of dirt is a farewell, a final act of respect for a comrade whose journey has ended. The constant threat of capture looms large, a fear that gnaws at the edges of your consciousness. You hear stories of prisoner of war camps, of starvation, disease, and unimaginable suffering. The thought of being stripped of your freedom, of being at the mercy of your captors, is a terrifying prospect. You learn to be vigilant, to move with caution, to always be aware of your surroundings. The rustle of leaves, the snap of a twig, the distant sound of voices, each can be a sign of danger, a harbinger of a fate worse than death. The freedom of movement, once taken for granted, now feels like a precious commodity, something to be guarded with every fiber of your being. The world outside the battlefield, the world of civilian life, seems impossibly distant, a fading dream in the harsh reality of your existence. Back in camp, the rhythm of life attempts to reassert itself, a fragile normalcy amidst the constant threat of disruption. You clean your rifle, the metallic scent of oil and gunpowder, a familiar comfort. You mend your tattered uniform, the needle a small, precise instrument against the rough fabric. The sounds of the camp return, the murmur of conversations, the clatter of cooking pots, the distant strains of a banjo. Yet beneath this surface of routine, a profound weariness settles into your bones, a fatigue that sleep cannot fully erase. The faces of your comrades, once full of youthful vigor, now bear the subtle lines of experience, the haunted look of those who have witnessed too much. The food, always meager, becomes even more precious. You learn to savor every bite of hardtack, every sip of thin coffee. The taste of salt pork, though monotonous, is a welcome source of sustenance. You might forage for wild berries or roots, adding a fleeting burst of flavor to your bland diet. The hunger is a constant companion, a dull ache in your stomach that never truly disappears. You dream of fresh bread, of roasted meat, of the simple, abundant meals of home. The scent of a distant farm, carrying the aroma of baking or frying, can trigger a wave of intense longing, a painful reminder of what you have lost. The weather, an indifferent force, becomes a significant adversary. You endure the biting cold of winter, the wind whipping through your threadbare uniform, chilling you to the bone. You huddle around meager fires, the smoke stinging your eyes, your fingers numb with cold. The ground freezes solid, making sleep an even more elusive luxury. Then comes the oppressive heat of summer, the sun beating down with relentless intensity, turning the air into a suffocating blanket. You sweat constantly, your uniform clinging to your skin, and the dust rises in choking clouds with every step. The thirst is unquenchable, your throat raw and parched. You learn to appreciate the smallest drop of water, the briefest moment of shade, the fleeting relief of a cool breeze. Letters from home continue to arrive, though sometimes weeks or even months pass between them. Each one is a treasure, a tangible link to the world you left behind. You read of the struggles on the home front, the scarcity of goods, the rising prices, the constant worry. You learn of loved ones falling ill, of neighbors moving away, of the quiet, relentless march of time in your absence. You write back, trying to maintain a brave face, to offer reassurance, to paint a picture of resilience and hope. The ink on the page, the familiar scent of the paper, these become a conduit for emotions that cannot be spoken aloud, a silent conversation across vast distances. The camaraderie among your fellow soldiers deepens, forged in the crucible of shared hardship and danger. You learn to rely on each other, to trust with your life the man standing next to you. You share stories, jokes, and the quiet moments of despair. You witness acts of profound courage and selfless sacrifice. The bonds you form are unlike any you have known, a brotherhood born of fire and blood. You learn to read the unspoken language of their faces, to understand the subtle shifts in their moods, to offer comfort without words. The sound of their laughter, even in the darkest moments, is a balm to your soul, a reminder of the enduring human spirit. You witness the slow erosion of hope in some, the quiet despair that settles in their eyes. You see men break under the strain, their bodies and minds unable to bear the relentless pressure. Some desert, slipping away into the night, seeking a return to the life they once knew, a desperate gamble for freedom. Others simply give up, their spirits broken, their will to fight extinguished. You feel the weight of their suffering, the profound sadness of their surrender. The war, once a grand adventure, a noble cause, now reveals its true face. A grinding, relentless machine that consumes lives and souls with an insatiable hunger. The quiet passage of time, once a gentle current, now feels like a relentless tide, pulling you further and further from the shores of your former life. On the home front, the war is a constant, unseen presence, a shadow that lengthens with each passing day. You, as a woman, feel its weight in every aspect of your life. The familiar rhythm of the household, once a comforting hum, is now punctuated by the absence of men, their voices, their strength, their very presence. The silence in the evenings, where once there was laughter or the low murmur of conversation, now feels vast and empty, filled only with the crackle of the fire and the anxious beat of your own heart. The scent of freshly baked bread, once a simple pleasure, now carries the subtle undertone of scarcity, a reminder of the dwindling supplies and rising prices. The burden of labor shifts, heavy and unyielding. You learn to manage the farm, to plow the fields, to tend the livestock, tasks once solely performed by men. Your hands, once soft, become calloused and rough. Your muscles ache with a new kind of fatigue. You learn to be resourceful, to mend and make do, to stretch meager rations, to find substitutes for goods that are no longer available. The spinning wheel hums a constant tune. The loom clacks a steady rhythm as you produce cloth for uniforms, for blankets, for the very survival of your family. The sun beats down on your back as you work in the fields, or the chill of winter seeps into your bones as you chop wood, each task a testament to your unwavering resolve. The children, too, feel the war's pervasive touch. Their games become imitations of battle, their toys crude replicas of rifles and cannons. You see the questions in their eyes, the unspoken fears that flicker across their faces when news arrives, or when a neighbor's door is draped in black. You try to shield them, to maintain a semblance of normalcy, but the reality of the conflict seeps into their young lives, shaping their understanding of the world. You tell them stories, sing them songs, offer them comfort, but the shadow of war is long, and its reach extends even to the innocent. News arrives sporadically, carried by weary travelers or in crumpled, often delayed newspapers. Each dispatch is met with a mixture of dread and desperate hope. You scan the casualty lists with a trembling hand, your breath catching in your throat, searching for familiar names, praying not to find them. The sight of a black-bordered letter delivered by a solemn messenger sends a cold dread through the community, a silent signal of loss. You attend the funerals, the quiet weeping of widows and mothers, a haunting echo in the small church, the scent of lily and damp earth mingling with the profound sorrow. Each loss is a ripple, spreading outwards, touching every life in the community. The constant worry is a dull, persistent ache in your chest. You worry about your husband, your son, your brother, out there in the vast, dangerous world of battle. You imagine the cold, the hunger, the fear, the pain. You pray for their safety, for their return, for an end to this terrible conflict. The nights are often sleepless, your mind replaying scenarios, conjuring images of unimaginable horror. You listen to the wind howl outside, or the rain patter against the window pane, and each sound seems to carry a whisper of their distant struggles. The simple act of waiting becomes an act of profound endurance, a silent testament to the strength of the human heart. You find solace in the community, in the shared burden of hardship. Women gather to sew, to knit, to prepare bandages, their hands moving with a quiet determination, their voices a low murmur of shared anxieties and whispered hopes. You share what little you have, a cup of sugar, a handful of flour, a comforting word. The bonds between neighbors deepen, forged in the crucible of shared adversity. The scent of freshly brewed coffee, shared over hushed conversations, becomes a symbol of enduring connection. You draw strength from each other, a silent network of resilience that holds the fabric of society together, even as the world around you threatens to unravel. The quiet passage of time, once a gentle current, now feels like a relentless tide, pulling you further and further from the shores of your former life, yet binding you ever closer to those who share your struggle. For those enslaved, the war arrives not as a distant rumble, but as a tremor beneath the very ground they stand upon, a profound disturbance in the oppressive stillness of their lives. You, as an enslaved person, have lived your entire existence under the shadow of bondage, your days dictated by the rising and setting of the sun, by the demands of the master, by the relentless rhythm of forced labor. The scent of cotton, of tobacco, of freshly turned earth is inextricably linked to the ache in your back, the burning in your muscles, the weariness that settles deep in your bones. The sounds of the plantation, the crack of the whip, the distant shouts of the overseer, the mournful spirituals sung in the fields, are the constant soundtrack to your existence. But now, a new sound begins to filter through the familiar rhythms. The distant boom of cannon fire, the faint, almost imperceptible hum of approaching armies. You hear the hushed conversations among the white folk, their voices laced with fear and uncertainty, words like Yankees and freedom whispered in the shadows. A flicker of hope, fragile and dangerous, ignites within you, a tiny spark in the vast darkness of your oppression. You watch for signs, for changes in the master's demeanor, for the movement of troops, for any indication that the world you know is finally, irrevocably shifting. The arrival of soldiers, whether Union or Confederate, brings a chaotic disruption to the plantation. You might see columns of dusty men marching down the road, their uniforms a stark contrast to the familiar landscape. The air fills with the scent of their horses, their sweat, their gunpowder. For a moment, the rigid order of the plantation is broken, replaced by a swirling vortex of uncertainty. You might hide in the woods, listening to the shouts, the clatter of equipment, the unfamiliar voices. Your heart pounds a frantic rhythm against your ribs, a mixture of fear and a desperate, burgeoning hope. When Union soldiers appear, a profound, almost unbelievable sensation washes over you. The sight of their blue uniforms, the sound of their voices speaking words of liberation, feels like a dream made real. You might approach them cautiously, your eyes wide with a mixture of disbelief and yearning. They speak of freedom, of a life beyond the confines of the plantation, words that have been whispered in secret for generations, now spoken openly, boldly. The scent of their campfires, the sound of their laughter, these become symbols of a new, unimaginable future. You feel the sun on your face, the wind in your hair, and for the first time, it feels like your own. The journey to freedom, however, is often fraught with peril. You might slip away in the dead of night, leaving behind everything you have ever known, guided only by the faint light of the stars and the desperate hope in your heart. You walk through dense forests, your bare feet cut by thorns and sharp stones, the sounds of the night, the hoot of an owl, the rustle of unseen creatures, magnified by your fear. You cross swollen rivers, the cold water swirling around your waist, threatening to pull you under. Hunger gnaws at your stomach, thirst parches your throat, and exhaustion threatens to overwhelm you. But you push on, driven by the promise of a life where your body is your own, where your children will not be born into chains. You might join the Union Army, the uniform a symbol of your newfound agency, your rifle a tool of liberation. The drills are hard, the discipline strict, but you endure, fueled by a fierce determination to fight for your own freedom and the freedom of your people. You march alongside white soldiers, facing the same dangers, enduring the same hardships. The scent of gunpowder, once a symbol of oppression, now becomes the smell of your own defiance. You hear the shouts of your comrades, the rhythmic tramp of their boots, and you feel a profound sense of belonging, a shared purpose that transcends the color of your skin. The quiet passage of time, once a slow, agonizing crawl, now feels like a swift, urgent current, carrying you towards a future you once only dared to dream of. The hospitals, whether field tents or converted buildings, are places where the raw reality of the war is laid bare. You, as a soldier, might find yourself here, your body racked with pain, your senses overwhelmed by the sights and sounds of suffering. The air is thick with the cloying scent of blood, of antiseptic, of unwashed bodies, a heavy, suffocating presence that clings to your lungs. The low moans of the wounded, the sharp cries of men undergoing surgery, the hushed whispers of nurses and doctors, these sounds form a constant haunting symphony that never truly fades. You lie on a cot, perhaps just a pile of straw, your body aching, your mind drifting in and out of consciousness. The pain is a relentless, consuming fire. It throbs in your wounded limb, a searing agony that makes every breath a struggle. You clench your teeth, bite down on a piece of leather, anything to distract from the relentless torment. The touch of a cool cloth on your fevered brow, the gentle hand of a nurse, these small acts of kindness become profound moments of solace in a world consumed by suffering. You watch as doctors, their faces grim with exhaustion, work with a desperate urgency, their instruments glinting in the dim light. The sight of a saw, the sound of bone being cut, these become terrifyingly familiar, a constant reminder of your own precarious existence. Amputation is a common, brutal necessity. You might witness it, or experience it yourself. The decision is swift, often made without anesthetic, the only option to save a life from gangrene or infection. You hear the screams, the desperate pleas, the sickening sound of bone being severed. The smell of blood, fresh and metallic, fills your nostrils. You see the severed limb, a stark, horrifying testament to the war's destructive power. The phantom pains, the ghost of a limb that is no longer there, can haunt you long after the physical wound has healed, a constant reminder of what you have lost. The nurses, often women who have left their homes to serve, move through the wards with a quiet determination. Their faces are etched with weariness, but their eyes hold a deep compassion. They offer water, change bandages, whisper words of comfort, their presence a beacon of humanity amidst the despair. You feel the gentle touch of their hands, the soothing sound of their voices, and for a fleeting moment, the pain recedes, replaced by a fragile sense of peace. They are angels of mercy, their tireless efforts a testament to the enduring power of empathy in the face of unimaginable suffering. The fear of death is a constant companion, a cold hand that grips your heart. You see men die around you, their breath fading, their eyes glazing over, their bodies growing still. You hear the last rites whispered, the quiet prayers offered. The fragility of life, once an abstract concept, becomes a stark, undeniable reality. You wonder if your own time is near, if you will ever see your home again, if your loved ones will ever know your fate. The sounds of the hospital, the moans, the cries, the hushed whispers, become a constant reminder of your own mortality, a chilling lullaby that accompanies your waking hours and haunts your restless sleep. When you are finally strong enough to leave the hospital, the world outside feels strangely alien. The sunlight, once a welcome warmth, now seems too bright, too harsh. The sounds of the camp, the shouts, the laughter, the clatter of equipment seem distant, muffled. You walk with a limp, or your body feels weaker, changed. The experience has left an indelible mark, a scar not just on your body, but on your soul. You carry the memories of the suffering you witnessed, the faces of the men who did not survive. The quiet passage of time, once a gentle current, now feels like a slow, arduous climb, each step a testament to your enduring will to survive, to return to a life that feels impossibly far away. The prisoner of war camps are a descent into a different kind of hell, a place where the war's cruelty is distilled into its most basic, dehumanizing form. You, as a captured soldier, find yourself stripped of your uniform, your dignity, and often your very name, reduced to a number, a statistic in a vast, suffering multitude. The air is thick with the stench of unwashed bodies, of human waste, of disease, a pervasive odor that clings to every surface, every breath. The ground beneath your feet is churned to mud or baked to dust, depending on the season, offering no comfort, no respite. Hunger becomes a constant, gnawing torment, a relentless ache in your stomach that never truly subsides. You are given meager rations, often spoiled or insufficient, barely enough to sustain life. You learn to scavenge for scraps, to trade precious possessions for a mouthful of food, to eat things you would never have considered before. The taste of moldy bread, the watery consistency of thin soup, these become the only flavors you know. Your body wastes away, your bones becoming more prominent, your skin stretched taut over your frame. The sight of a fellow prisoner, his face gaunt and hollow, his eyes sunken with starvation, is a constant reflection of your own slow decline. Disease runs rampant through the crowded, unsanitary conditions. Dysentery, scurvy, smallpox, typhoid, these are not just names, but terrifying realities that claim lives with ruthless efficiency. You witness the coughing fits, the feverish delirium, the agonizing pain that racks the bodies of your comrades. The sounds of their suffering, their desperate pleas for water, their final rattling breaths, become a constant haunting soundtrack to your days and nights. The makeshift infirmaries, if they exist at all, offer little comfort, merely a place for the dying to await their inevitable end. The fragility of life, already stark on the battlefield, is here reduced to its most precarious state. The cold of winter is a brutal adversary. You huddle with your comrades, sharing what little warmth you can generate, your threadbare clothes offering scant protection against the biting wind and the freezing rain. Your fingers and toes grow numb, the threat of frostbite a constant worry. The ground beneath you is hard and unforgiving, radiating a deep, penetrating chill that seeps into your very bones. You dream of warmth, of a roaring fire, of a soft bed, but these are distant, unattainable luxuries. The sounds of the wind howling through the flimsy barracks, the chattering of teeth, these become the sounds of your enduring misery. The guards, often young and hardened by their own experiences, maintain a strict, often brutal discipline. You learn to obey without question, to move with caution, to avoid drawing attention to yourself. The crack of a whip, the sharp bark of a command, the glint of a bayonet, these are constant reminders of your powerlessness, your complete subjugation. You witness acts of cruelty, of casual indifference to suffering, and a deep, burning resentment begins to fester within you. Yet you suppress it, for defiance means punishment, and punishment means a further descent into the abyss of pain and deprivation. Hope, however, is a stubborn ember that refuses to be extinguished. You cling to stories of exchange, of escape, of the eventual end of the war. You share whispered conversations with your comrades, finding solace in their shared suffering, their enduring spirit. You dream of home, of loved ones, of the simple pleasures of a life free from confinement. The faint scent of a distant cooking fire, the sight of a bird soaring freely in the sky, these small glimpses of the outside world become powerful symbols of the freedom you yearn for. The quiet passage of time, once a slow, agonizing crawl, now feels like an endless, suffocating wait, each day a testament to your enduring will to survive, to reclaim the life that has been so cruelly taken from you. The long marches, often spanning hundreds of miles, become a test of endurance that pushes the human body to its absolute limits. You, as a soldier, trudge forward day after day, your feet pounding a relentless rhythm on dusty roads or muddy tracks. The sun beats down with an unforgiving intensity, or the rain soaks you to the bone, turning your uniform into a heavy, clinging shroud. Your muscles ache with a deep, pervasive fatigue that settles into your very bones, a weariness that sleep cannot fully erase. The weight of your pack, your rifle, your ammunition becomes an unbearable burden, each step a struggle against the pull of exhaustion. The dust, a constant companion, rises in choking clouds with every step, coating your uniform, your hair, your very lungs. It stings your eyes, dries your throat, and leaves a gritty taste on your tongue. When it rains, the dust turns to thick, clinging mud, sucking at your boots, making each step a laborious effort. You slip and slide, your legs burning with the effort to maintain your balance. The scent of damp earth, of sweat, of unwashed bodies fills the air, a pervasive odor that becomes intimately familiar. You learn to breathe shallowly, to conserve your energy, to focus only on the next step, the next breath. Water becomes a precious commodity, its absence a constant torment. Your throat is parched, your lips cracked and dry. You dream of cool, clear springs, of deep, refreshing rivers. When you finally reach a water source, you drink deeply, the cool liquid a profound relief, a momentary respite from the relentless thirst. The taste of pure water, once taken for granted, now feels like the most exquisite luxury. You learn to ration your sips, to make every drop count, to endure the gnawing discomfort of dehydration. The landscape blurs into a monotonous repetition of fields, forests, and winding roads. You pass through deserted towns, their windows like vacant eyes, their streets silent and empty. You see the remnants of civilian life, a broken fence, a discarded toy, a forgotten tool, poignant reminders of the lives that have been disrupted, the homes that have been abandoned. The silence of these places is profound, broken only by the rhythmic tramp of your boots and the distant caw of a crow. You wonder about the people who once lived there, where they have gone, what their fate has been. The nights on the march offer little rest. You collapse onto the hard ground, your body aching, your mind still reeling from the day's exertion. The air is often cold, damp, and the sounds of the night, the rustle of leaves, the distant howl of a coyote, the murmur of your comrades' voices, can feel both comforting and unsettling. You pull your thin blanket tighter, seeking warmth, seeking solace, but sleep is often elusive, haunted by the day's hardships and the anxieties of the unknown future. The stars, if visible through the clouds, seem impossibly distant, their cold light illuminating a world that feels vast and indifferent. Despite the relentless hardship, a strange sense of camaraderie deepens among the men. You share your last crumbs of food, your last sips of water. You offer a steadying hand to a faltering comrade, a whispered word of encouragement. You witness acts of profound resilience, of quiet determination, of an unwavering will to continue. The shared suffering forges an unbreakable bond, a silent understanding that transcends words. The rhythmic tramp of your boots, the shared burden of the march, these become a testament to the enduring human spirit, a collective refusal to surrender to the overwhelming forces of exhaustion and despair. The quiet passage of time, once a gentle current, now feels like a relentless, grinding force, pushing you forward, step by agonizing step, towards an uncertain destination. As the war grinds on, the landscape itself begins to bear the indelible scars of conflict. You, as a soldier, witness the transformation of once familiar places into desolate, ravaged stretches of earth. Forests are reduced to skeletal remains, their trees splintered and blackened by artillery fire, their branches reaching towards the sky like gnarled, accusing fingers. The scent of charred wood, of damp ash, hangs heavy in the air, a constant reminder of the destructive power that has swept through. The ground, once fertile and green, is churned into a barren wasteland of mud and craters, pockmarked by the relentless impact of shells. You pass through towns and villages that have been utterly devastated, their buildings reduced to rubble, their streets silent and empty. The windows of shattered homes stare out like vacant eyes, reflecting the profound emptiness within. The faint scent of decay, of forgotten lives, lingers in the air, a haunting presence that speaks of what once was. You see the remnants of civilian life, a child's doll lying in the dust, a broken piece of pottery, a tattered curtain fluttering in a window frame. Poignant reminders of the lives that have been shattered, the dreams that have been extinguished. The silence of these places is profound, broken only by the crunch of your boots on debris and the distant caw of a crow. The rivers and streams, once sources of life and sustenance, are now often choked with debris, their waters murky and tainted. You might see the bloated bodies of horses, or even men, floating downstream, a grim testament to the indiscriminate nature of the conflict. The air near these waterways carries a faint, sickly sweet odor, a chilling reminder of the death that has permeated the very landscape. You drink from these waters with a desperate thirst, knowing the risks, but having no other choice. The taste is often metallic, earthy, a constant reminder of the war's pervasive touch. The sounds of nature, once a comforting symphony, are now often replaced by the echoes of violence. The distant rumble of cannon fire, the sharp crack of musketry, the mournful cries of the wounded, these become the dominant sounds of your world. Even the birds seem to sing with a different cadence, their calls more urgent, more wary. The wind, as it rustles through the shattered trees, seems to whisper tales of sorrow and loss. You learn to distinguish the sounds of approaching danger, the subtle shifts in the air that signal an impending attack, your senses heightened by the constant threat. The psychological toll of witnessing such widespread destruction begins to weigh heavily. You see the haunted look in the eyes of your comrades, the subtle tremor in their hands, the way they flinch at sudden noises. The constant exposure to death and devastation leaves an indelible mark, a deep wound that no physical healing can fully mend. You might find yourself staring blankly into the distance, your mind numb, your emotions dulled by the sheer scale of the suffering. The world, once vibrant and full of promise, now seems bleak and desolate, its beauty overshadowed by the pervasive shadow of war. Yet, amidst the desolation, you might occasionally glimpse a flicker of resilience. A single wildflower pushing through the cracked earth, a bird building a nest in a shattered tree, the quiet determination in the eyes of a surviving civilian. These small acts of defiance offer a fragile glimmer of hope. They are reminders that life, in its stubborn persistence, will always find a way to reclaim what has been lost. The quiet passage of time, once a gentle current, now feels like a relentless, grinding force, shaping the very earth beneath your feet, leaving behind a landscape forever altered, forever scarred, yet still holding the promise of eventual renewal. As the war drags on, the concept of time itself begins to warp and stretch, losing its familiar rhythm. Days blend into weeks, weeks into months, marked not by the changing seasons or the gentle progression of civilian life, but by battles fought, miles marched, and comrades lost. You, as a soldier, live in a perpetual present, your focus narrowed to the immediate moment. The next meal, the next watch, the next order. The past feels impossibly distant, a fading dream, and the future, a terrifying uncertainty. The scent of stale sweat and damp earth becomes the scent of your enduring existence, a constant reminder of the timeless struggle. The letters from home, once frequent and eagerly awaited, become rarer, their arrival a cause for both joy and renewed anxiety. You read of the growing hardships, the deepening despair, the quiet erosion of hope in the hearts of those you left behind. The ink on the page, the familiar handwriting, these are fragile threads connecting you to a world that feels increasingly alien, a life that seems to belong to another person, another time. You write back, your words carefully chosen, trying to convey a sense of resilience, of enduring hope, even as your own spirit feels worn thin. The silence between letters can be deafening, filled with unspoken fears and the gnawing uncertainty of what might be happening far away. The faces of your comrades, once distinct and individual, begin to blur into a collective image of weariness and grim determination. You see the lines etched deeper around their eyes, the subtle tremor in their hands, the way their laughter, when it comes, is often tinged with a profound sadness. The bonds of camaraderie, forged in the crucible of shared suffering, become even stronger, a silent understanding that transcends words. You share your last crumbs of food, your last sips of water, your last moments of quiet despair. The sound of their breathing beside you in the darkness, the shared warmth of their bodies, these become a source of profound comfort, a reminder that you are not alone in this endless struggle. The constant exposure to violence and death begins to dull your senses, to numb your emotions. You witness horrors that would once have shattered your spirit, but now they are simply another part of the day's grim reality. The screams of the wounded, the sight of fallen comrades, the pervasive scent of blood and decay, these become a familiar, almost mundane backdrop to your existence. A protective shell begins to form around your heart, a necessary defense against the overwhelming tide of suffering. You learn to suppress your fear, your grief, your anger, pushing them down into a deep, silent place within you. Yet, in moments of quiet solitude, the memories can resurface with a sudden, visceral intensity. The face of a fallen friend, the sound of a particular bugle call, the scent of a specific flower, These small triggers can unleash a torrent of suppressed emotions, a wave of sorrow that threatens to overwhelm you. You might find yourself staring blankly into the distance, your mind replaying scenes of horror, your body trembling with an unseen chill. The weight of what you have witnessed, what you have endured, settles upon you like a heavy shroud, a burden that you will carry long after the war has ended. The quiet passage of time, once a gentle current, now feels like a relentless, grinding force, shaping your very being, leaving an indelible mark on your soul. You are no longer the person you were when you first enlisted, the naive young man filled with patriotic fervor. You are a veteran, hardened by experience, scarred by loss, forever changed by the crucible of war. The world you once knew, the world of predictable seasons and quiet routines, seems impossibly distant, a fading dream in the harsh reality of your enduring existence. You continue to move forward, one step at a time, driven by a primal instinct to survive, to see the end of this long, terrible journey. As the war enters its final, desperate stages, a profound weariness settles over the land and its people. You, whether soldier or civilian, feel the cumulative weight of years of conflict, the relentless drain on resources, on spirit, on hope. The air itself seems to carry a heavier burden, thick with the unspoken anxieties of a nation teetering on the brink. The scent of wood smoke, once comforting, now often carries the faint, acrid tang of desperation, of dwindling supplies and makeshift solutions. For the soldier, the marshes become even more grueling, the battles more desperate, fought with a grim, exhausted determination. Your uniform is tattered, your boots worn through, your body a testament to the relentless grind of campaigning. The faces of your comrades are gaunt, their eyes hollowed by fatigue and the constant presence of death. The sounds of distant cannon fire, once terrifying, now feel like a monotonous drone, a backdrop to the quiet hum of your own profound exhaustion. You push forward not for glory, but for survival, for the faint promise of an end to this endless nightmare. On the home front, the scarcity of goods becomes acute. Food is rationed, prices soar, and the simple necessities of life become luxuries. You learn to make do with less, to stretch every scrap, to find ingenious substitutes for what is no longer available. The gardens, once abundant, now yield meager harvests, their soil depleted, their promise diminished. The sounds of daily life are quieter, the laughter less frequent, replaced by the hushed conversations of worry and the constant hum of anxious anticipation. The scent of a neighbor's cooking, once a comforting aroma, now often carries the subtle undertone of hunger, a shared burden that binds the community together. The news, when it arrives, is often a mixture of small victories and devastating losses, each one adding to the cumulative toll. You hear of towns falling, of armies retreating, of the relentless ebb and flow of a conflict that seems to have no end. The casualty lists grow longer, the black-bordered letters more frequent, bringing sorrow to every doorstep. You attend more funerals, the quiet weeping of the bereaved, a constant echo in the small church, the scent of lily and damp earth mingling with the profound, collective grief. The weight of so much loss settles upon the community, a heavy shroud that dampens every spirit. Yet, amidst the despair, a flicker of resilience persists. You see it in the quiet determination of a farmer tending his fields, in the tireless efforts of women sewing uniforms, in the unwavering spirit of those who refuse to surrender to the overwhelming forces of war. Small acts of kindness, of shared resources, of whispered words of encouragement become profound acts of defiance against the encroaching darkness. The bonds of community, forged in the crucible of shared hardship, become stronger, a silent network of support that holds the fabric of society together, even as it threatens to unravel. The quiet passage of time, once a gentle current, now feels like a slow, agonizing crawl, each day a testament to the enduring will to survive. You yearn for peace, for an end to the suffering, for a return to a life that feels impossibly distant, a fading memory. The world you knew, the world of predictable seasons and quiet routines, seems to have vanished, replaced by a landscape of profound weariness and an uncertain future. You continue to endure, one breath at a time, one step at a time, clinging to the faint hope that this long, terrible journey will, eventually, come to an end. The air itself seems to hold its breath, waiting for the final, decisive moment that will either bring salvation or plunge the nation into an even deeper abyss. Then, a subtle shift begins, a faint tremor in the air that is different from the familiar rumble of cannon fire. It is a whisper, carried on the wind, of victories, of surrenders, of a turning tide. You, whether soldier or civilian, feel it in the subtle change in the expressions of those around you, in the way their eyes hold a nascent, fragile hope. The scent of damp earth, of wood smoke, now seems to carry a faint, almost imperceptible aroma of possibility, a hint of something new on the horizon. For the soldier, the final campaigns are fought with a desperate, renewed energy, fueled by the tantalizing prospect of an end. The marshes are still grueling, the battles still brutal, but there is a new urgency, a sense that each step, each shot, brings you closer to the finish line. You see the exhaustion in your comrades' faces, but also a flicker of determination, a shared understanding that the end is finally within reach. The sounds of gunfire, though still terrifying, now seem to carry a different resonance, a final desperate crescendo before the silence. On the home front, the news arrives with a sudden, overwhelming rush. Telegrams, newspapers, word of mouth, the tidings of surrender spread like wildfire, igniting a wave of disbelief, then profound relief. You hear the shouts of joy, the ringing of church bells, the spontaneous bursts of celebration in the streets. Tears, long held back, now flow freely, a mixture of sorrow for what has been lost and overwhelming gratitude for what has been saved. The scent of freshly baked bread, of simmering stews, now fills the air with a renewed sense of abundance, a promise of returning normalcy. The silence that follows the cessation of hostilities is profound, almost deafening. The absence of cannon fire, of musketry, of the constant hum of war, leaves a vast, echoing emptiness. You listen to the sounds of birdsong, the gentle rustle of leaves, the distant laughter of children, and these familiar sounds, once taken for granted, now feel like the most exquisite music, a symphony of peace. The air, once thick with the scent of gunpowder and fear, now carries the clean, fresh aroma of rain-washed earth, of new beginnings. The return of the soldiers is a slow, often quiet procession. You see them arrive, their uniforms tattered, their bodies gaunt, their faces etched with the indelible marks of their experiences. They are no longer the boys who left, but men hardened by the crucible of war, their eyes holding a wisdom beyond their years. The reunions are often tearful, a mixture of joy and a profound, unspoken understanding of the chasm that is open between those who went and those who waited. You feel the rough fabric of their uniforms, the callous touch of their hands, and a wave of relief washes over you, a deep, abiding gratitude for their safe return. Yet the scars of war run deep, both on the land and in the hearts of its people. You walk through fields that are still barren, past homes that are still in ruins. You see the empty chairs at dinner tables, the vacant spaces in communities, constant reminders of those who will never return. The sounds of mourning, though quieter now, still echo in the background, a somber counterpoint to the sounds of celebration. The quiet passage of time, once a gentle current, now feels like a slow, arduous process of healing, of rebuilding, of coming to terms with a world irrevocably altered. The war may be over, but its legacy will linger, a profound shadow cast over generations, a testament to the enduring cost of conflict and the unwavering resilience of the human spirit.